to MagicDivisions.com Nostalgia Trip. And today, my friends, as you heard from the theme song, we are going to be talking about a show that really made reading fun for me. As I told you before, I am a PBS kid. I grew up watching a lot of PBS shows. And today, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite shows that made reading fun. Let's talk about Wishbone. So, what's the story, Wishbone? Actually, what is the story about Wishbone? Because Wishbone remains one of the most unique, heartfelt children's programs ever produced by PBS. Airing on PBS from 1995 to 1997, the series managed to do something few educational shows have accomplished before or since. And that's actually make classical literature genuinely exciting for kids. At the center of it all was a small Jack Russell Terrier with an oversized imagination and enough charisma to carry Shakespeare, Homer, Dickens, and H.G. Wells on his back. The show was created by Rick Duffield and produced by Texas based Big Feats Entertainment under the Lyric Studios. Wishbone followed by the everyday adventures of Joe and his friends in the fictional town of Oakdale, Texas. Joe dealt with the kind of problems most young viewers could immediately relate to, such as school, friendship, stress, misunderstandings, and of course, growing pains. What made the show special was how those situations mirrored timeless literary conflicts. Whenever parallels emerged, Wishbone would imagine himself stepping directly into the pages of famous novels and plays, becoming the hero of the story in an elaborate fantasy sequence filled with costumes, period set pieces, and surprisingly, a faithful adaptation of the literary works. The structure of the series was brilliant in its simplicity. Modern day problems grounded the episode in reality, while the literary segments elevated them into something adventurous and imaginative. One viewers were watching Joe struggle with disagreements among friends, and next they were sailing alongside Odysseus on investigating mysteries with Sherlock Holmes. The transitions never felt forced because the emotional themes connected naturally. Courage, jealousy, loyalty, ambition, and redemption carried equal weight, whether the setting was suburban Texas or ancient Greece. Much of the show's charm came from Larry Brantley's voice performance as Wishbone. His sarcastic wit and clever observation gave the dog a personality that felt sharp without becoming cynical. Wishbone was confident, curious, and often hilariously dramatic. Combined with Sokka's expressive physical performance, the character became instantly iconic. Sokka was the primary Jack Russell Terrier used throughout production. This is the dog that handled costumes, stunts, and complex scenes with remarkable precision. Trust me, folks, this was a very professional dog actor, and this dog could act. Although additional dogs were occasionally assisting during filming, Sokka was definitely the heart of production. And speaking of the production itself was far more ambitious than many viewers like me realized at the time. Based off my research, episodes were filmed in Texas on a soundstage, and backlots were crews constantly built new environments to recreate vastly different worlds. One week we required this Victorian England, while another demanded pirate ships or ancient kingdoms. And despite the demanding pace, the show maintained an impressive level of consistency and creativity. The costumes were charming without looking cheap, and it captured the book's adaptations respectively from the source material very well. Not to mention the scripts balanced education and entertainment in a way that never felt preachy. Although the series only produced 50 episodes across 2 seasons, along with the television film Wishbone's Dog Days of the West in 1998, its impact far exceeded its runtime. The show earned a Peabody Award and multiple Daytime Emmy Awards while becoming a favorite among teachers and parents who appreciated how effectively it encouraged reading. More importantly, it left a lasting impression on an entire generation of viewers, such as myself. I mean, come on, I'm doing like a mini retrospective on it right now, who discovered classic literature through a talking dog and a tiny costume. What truly separated Wishbone from many children's programs of its era was its refusal to underestimate its audience. The show trusted kids to engage with challenging ideas and emotional layered stories. Shakespearean tragedies, philosophical questions, and historical conflicts were simplified enough to remain accessible, but never stripped the core story or its emotional arcs. And that's what made Wishbone so great is how it treated its audience. Among its more memorable installments, a few episodes stood out to me. I will say that really defined the series. One that really worked so well was Homer Sweet Homer, inspired by the Odyssey, and it remains one of the most beloved episodes in the show's history. Wishbone stepped into the role of Odysseus as he battled mythical obstacles on his long journey home while Joe struggled with feeling underappreciated in his own life. The episode perfectly captured the adventurous spirit of Greek mythology while maintaining the emotional relatability that defined the series. For many viewers, it was their first exposure to Homer's epic tale, and the episode demonstrated how effectively Wishbone could transform ancient literature into something exciting and personal. And another standout was Rosie O, the show's adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. Rather than watering down Shakespeare's tragedy, the episode embraced the emotional weight of the story while framing it through conflicts occurring in Oakdale. Wishbone's theatrical performance as Romeo added humor and charm, but the themes of misunderstanding and division remained intact, which for my age, it was kind of revolutionary because they took kids seriously. They didn't shy away from it. No, it didn't get graphic as like some of the books. They made it in a way that it was digestible for a younger audience. And that's why it's heavily remembered and heavily praised. The famous balcony scenes were recreated with surprisingly sincerity, helping introduce younger audience to Shakespeare in a way that felt approachable rather than intimidating like some of our high school teachers still do to this day. Then finally, I will have to say Bark to the Future, inspired by H.G. Wells' The Time Machine. And this one showcased the series as his most imaginative. The episode ventured into science fiction territory with futuristic settings and commentary about progress, responsibility, and societal decline. Wishbone's portrayal of the time traveler allowed the show to explore more ambitious visual concepts while maintaining its educational focus. The episode proved that Wishbone was not limited to historical or fantasy literature, but could successfully adapt, fiction as well. And even now, folks, Wishbone feels refreshingly sincere compared to much of today's entertainment. L- You know, in an era dominated by fast-paced content and endless streaming options, the series stands as a reminder that an educational television can still be clever, emotional, engaging, and genuinely entertaining. Its storytelling was never driven by spectacle alone. Instead, it relied on the strong writing. I'm going to say that again. It relied on the strong writing. Do you hear that, writers? Do you hear that, screenwriters? Do you hear that, producers? It needs strong writing. And that's why the series was such of a cultural impact. That's why it's timeless. That's why some of us are still singing the theme song till this day. This was PBS's gem. This was PBS's really. I want to say obviously Sesame Street was the big dog, Arthur, and a couple of others. But Wishbone was great, man. I love Wishbone. The show's legacy continues to grow through nostalgia. Of course, people like me and there's other YouTubers and other content creators that are just saying, "Hey guys, this show really helped me enjoy reading. This show really got me into Shakespeare. This show really got me into Wells. This show really got me into Homer. This show really is something that I wish would come back." So I will have to say this. I would love to see the show come back. I will love a reboot because today kids need this. Kids need Wishbone again. Kids need a show that encourages reading, that makes reading fun again. And at its core, Wishbone succeeded because it understood something timeless about storytelling. Great stories survive because they speak to universal emotions. And Wishbone found a way to deliver that. Wishbone was more than just a children's television show. It was a gateway into literature, imagination, and storytelling for an entire generation that may have never otherwise picked up books like The Odyssey or Romeo and Juliet. Through its heart, its humor, and unforgettable charm of this small dog, the series proved that educational programming could be intelligent and entertaining. With that said, my friends, this has been Nostalgia Trip. This is Justin. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell.